Hey, what's up? It's Stu. There's only about a week left to go until Star Rail servers blow up. Kafka becomes playable, and since every time I stream Star Rail, I get at least 15 questions on how Kafka is meant to be built, I figure it's probably for the best if I get a quick video out there that answers a lot of these questions in advance. So let's get right into it. Kafka's gameplay, in case you weren't already aware, revolves around her putting DOTs on enemies, or DOTs stand for damage over time effects, and detonating them by using her skill, and once you unlock her first bonus ability, her ultimate as well. Note that it's not just her own DOTs that she can detonate, it's any DOT that her enemies have that she can detonate to deal more damage. So, because most of her damage should be coming from DOTs, and DOTs, note, cannot crit in Star Rail, a conventional Kafka build is a DOT abuse build, so she does not need any crit stats. Instead, you want attack percent, since that's her main stat, lightning damage bonus, and damage buffs. This means she'll want 4-piece lightning set, as shitty as it is, since the 20% attack buff after using her skill at least makes sense for her DOTs. Matter of fact, the lightning set was probably balanced around Kafka in the first place, and 2-piece space healing station, since she'll want the extra attack from that too. Main stats is where things get tricky, and ultimately it's up to you to decide what they're gonna be for your own Kafka. Speed boots is the normal choice. Kafka only has a base speed of 100, so giving her extra speed to keep up with enemies is perfectly fine, but she can run attack percent boots instead if you want to run, let's say, 2 other DOT teammates, so that way Kafka can go last after them and capitalize on the DOTs that they put on enemies themselves. You do not need effect hit rate, or EHR for short, as the main stat for her body piece, or at least you shouldn't. Kafka already gets not only 18% free EHR as part of her trace tree bonus stats, but her third bonus ability also increases the base chance of her putting shock on enemies by 30%. This means that Kafka does not really need EHR main stat body. She just needs a little bit of extra EHR from her Relics subsets, and that's it. Naturally, this opens up her body piece to take attack percent instead. Planar should be lightning damage, pretty straightforward, but her rope is her second area of contention, at least for now, and this one's a lot tougher of a choice to decide on right now. Kafka's ult is 120 cost, so you can choose to take energy for more frequent ults and more frequent detonations, or you can run attack percent rope for stronger detonations instead. Take your pick. My personal prediction is that energy may be the meta stat, or end up being the meta stat for Kafka's rope, specifically because of her first bonus ability that makes it so that her ult can detonate any DOT, not just shock, so making it so that Kafka can get it more frequently should end up being worth it in the long run over attack percent rope. For light cones, obviously try to pick up a copy of Patience, her gacha light cone, but in case you can't or don't want to because you'd rather roll for Kafka's Eidolons instead, more on that in a bit, she's got quite a few 4-star options and even a 5-star option to pick from eventually. Solitary Healing should be our next free 5-star light cone from Herta's store in Simulated Universe, and it should work nicely with Kafka when it comes out, on top of you being able to S5 it for free eventually. For 4 stars, Fermata, Eyes of the Prey, and Good Night are her relevant ones. I suggest waiting for the smart boys in the community to figure out which of these 4-star light cones is the best for her, and going with whichever one you got. Don't worry about the 3-star light cones, you're not really going to need them anyway, since you can just pick between Solitary Healing and Fermata from the MOC shop for free anyway. So back to her Eidolons. So far in Star Rail, the gacha 5-star light cones have been so good that you typically want to get a copy of the rate up character first, and then a copy of their light cone from gacha, that is, and then you can decide whether or not you want to chase for more Eidolons for the character. This is not going to be the case with Kafka, because her gacha light cone, while it's good, it's not quite as good, comparatively speaking, as the other 5-star gacha light cones that we've seen so far. Not only that, but Kafka's E1 is absolutely cracked, since it increases the DOT damage that whoever her talent's follow-up attack hits takes by 30% for 2 turns. So this should immensely help with Kafka's damage against, for example, bosses, or just single target enemies in general. So instead, you want to roll for E1 Kafka first before her light cone, and if you run out of Stellar J's to roll for her light cone, don't worry, like we mentioned earlier, you've got a few free-to-play light cone options to easily choose from. So again, prioritize her E1 over Patience if you don't think you have enough to get E1 S1. Lastly, leveling Kafka alone will actually not be enough, unless of course you've already invested into other DOT characters like Sampo and Serval. Since Kafka can detonate all the DOTs that enemies have on them, it's actually in your best interest to bring a teammate or two even along who can also slap enemies with their own DOTs. I've been seeing a lot of people raise Sampo for this reason, since apparently Windshear is pretty strong, but honestly, Kafka's best DOT partner will most likely be Luca, who's actually on the same banner as she is, so you'll probably pick up a few copies of him while you're rolling for Kafka. He's a physical nihility character, which means his DOT is Bleed, which I believe scales off the max HP of the enemies it's on, so it may be the single best DOT that you can pair with Kafka. So in case he is, get ready to farm his materials too when he and Kafka drop next week. Oh, and in case you'd rather bring at least one Harmony character to support the team, make sure you have your Asta ready. And that should do it for the crash course on how to build Kafka. Hope this helps. Make sure to check out my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/ToaSniper98, since I'll have both Kafka and Luca at max level the instant they come out once their banner's live. Other than that, best of luck for all your gacha rolls for Kafka as well. Peace.